Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, he's in that other box. He's Andy Esimakis. How are you, buddy?
You know what I realized today for the first time in a very long time?
What's that?
That I like crunchy cereal, like milk poured in first. You got to eat it fast, except for Raisin Bran. I like it soggy.
Huh.
Yeah.
And how did you come to this epiphany?
I don't know. I sat there with the bowl and I was like munching on it. I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me. So I let it sit for a little while. And now I was contented.
Yeah, right.
Words of wisdom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of stuff you get here, folks.
All good things to those who wait.
All good things.
Moral of that story.
We have Guillermo Vizcaino with us today. This is going to be an interesting story. He's the head of PR and marketing for Lienzo, developer of critically acclaimed Mulaka and the forthcoming Aztech Forgotten Gods. It is a Cyberstone Colossus. I don't even what do we got? Latine? What is that word? I've never heard of this word before, Andy.
Latinx. It's basically just Latin American inspired.
Okay, because it just says Latine.
Oh right.
So,
I mean,
I was like,
the
okay,
Spanish version of it.
Okay, so there's
yeah.
that E. The E got me, Andy. The E got me.
Oh, is it Latin A? I heard that pronunciation too from people. Is that what that is? With the E there?
Latine-Futurism, Cyberstone Colossus fighter, releasing March 10th, right around the corner, Guillermo.
It's
right
happening.
15 days away. It's 15 days away.
Indeed, and I've gotten my
Counting.
greedy little paws on it a little bit early, so I have thoughts. But ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into this bad boy, which we will, and we're gonna find out everything about Aztech, we're gonna talk a little bit about Mulaka, and of course, Guillermo, we're gonna talk all about you because that's why we're here. Oh, there's my work phone because technically, I guess I should be doing that. All right, we're gonna mute that. Sorry about that. For those of you who don't know, it's very simple. This is the Dual Screens podcast, the internet's #1 indie developer interview podcast starring two people you've never heard of, probably, and definitely #1 on dualscreens.com. That's right, Andy. We did it. We're the #1 show on dualscreens.com. Isn't that incredible?
Oh my God.
We did it, man.
I'm shocked.
It's amazing.
Happy to be here for it.
Can't do it without all of you. And we can't do it without our Patreon supporters. That's right. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/NDS podcast. Just like our Patreon producers, FNH Paul and Colton the Apprentice Nestler. We cannot continue to grow without all of your support. So thank you so much. It is because of you we're able to do more shows. We're able to go cover PAX East again this year. It's all thanks to you. So thank you so very much from the bottom of our heart. And if you're watching this on YouTube, consider hitting the subscribe button. We are so close to being able to actually make $1 off of this channel. So please
don't consider, do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
No consideration.
No more considerations. It's completely free. Hit the subscribe. It's free. Guillermo, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good. I'm actually just a little bit shocked. I have a wedding on this next weekend, and I shaved, and I just realized that I do have a double chin now.
Yeah, that'll
I'm
happen.
pretty sure I'm hiding one too underneath this monstrosity.
But it's one of those sad surprises that I'm just noticing. Now I'm obsessed with lowering my angles, that it's not that
just
bad.
do like one of those, like the head jutting out, like, hey guys.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a good one. Yeah,
you gotta get the camera pointed in the
just
right way.
Right.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll take the pictures. You'll look down a little bit.
In there and
that's fine.
Start over. Do that like Marvel MCU de-aging tech they got.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I already de-aged like 20 years just by shaving. So
right.
I believe it. I too have taken care of some grooming, but that's what. Let's take care.
Look good.
We should be. Andy, did you see my hair? I cut my hair.
I saw all of it. I cut
all my hair.
Human being at last. Welcome to the adulthood.
Yeah, I'm. Wow, this show has got off to a really good start here. We talked about cereal.
I'm gonna take it to a better place in a moment.
Please do, Andy. Hit us up with our ceremonial first question.
Guillermo, do you know that Mulaka sounds an awful lot like the Greek slang Mulaka, which means wanker or jerk off?
I do. Yes, I do. That's why we were talking about Greek words earlier on. Now I get it. Yeah, I do. And this came to my I came to realize this way after the game was already out. Because of course our Greek audience was like, that's like a very interesting name.
Yeah, I was like, interesting. Do they know?
So the thing is that Mulaka has an actual, like the word itself has an actual meaning. Mulaka is the word for maize or wheat in the original Taramara language, which is the basically the Native American culture we use as inspiration for the game. And there's several governors and whatnot that have already used the name Mulaka while governing. So it was an important term and whatnot to have.
Sure.
So we weighted the pros and cons, and it ended up winning. And besides, it's an easy word to say in most languages, which was something that we were very keen on having. And so yeah, I mean, we took the fall. And,
I just find it silly. Like, again, from my perspective, it's like it's such a silly word to say now. It's like you say it in passing, like to a close friend of yours. But when I was growing up, Mulaka was like, you're gonna fight someone.
Yeah.
When that word was tossed out, it was like that serious.
I gotcha.
I just crack up now. That's fine.
But I mean, it's there's no bad publicity, right? So as long as if they have it in mind, I'm fine with it.
You probably got a little bit of a weird audience from Greece originally. They were looking probably for something else. Some of those Andy games that Andy likes to go and find on the dark web, if you know what I mean.
And they found ours. No,
they found it.
I can live with that.
Listen, man.
Yeah, players are players.
Yeah, get that rating up.
I don't discuss those gaming habits on the podcast
Dark time.
unless the guest of the show is making one of those kind of games.
Indeed. Guillermo, speaking of kinds of games, it looks like we really like to focus on the whole like ancient native sort of themes here with Mulaka, now Aztech. Can you go to speak a little bit about that? Like, why do we focus as a team on kind of that time period or that culture?
Yeah, it's oddly enough. I mean, it's not necessarily by the sign. It's not like we're targeting, exclusively Native American like inspirations from like Latin America or something. It's the idea came to be because we wanted to show things that were Mexican, right? Things that, stories that are not as common. And we are very much used to, the mariachis and the piñatas and like tequila and things that, people hear or see and they immediately go, yeah, that's Mexico. Tacos and whatnot. So
all great things, by the way.
Oh no, totally. And we're in absolute love with all of them. And, who doesn't love Coco, right? The Disney movie. Right. And we do too, but we thought, there's a lot more out there that we can be talking about and that it's not as common, it's not as popular. A lot of that, it comes from Native American, cultural heritage. And so what we wanted to do was just give our audience something that was as Mexican as all of those things, but maybe that they've yet to hear of. Or at least more of, because I mean the Aztecs, maybe those are a little bit more popular. Back when we were doing Mulaka, I mean no one knew about the Tarahumara, outside of them being amazing runners and whatnot, but no one knew about the culture or the mythology. So we wanted that. We wanted to give it the spotlight and put them on the stage. And with Aztec, similarly, we wanted to have some of those more unknown myths and some of those maybe unexplored lore, and give it the God of War of treatments, right? The Assassin's Creed of treatments, and make something that's definitely fictional, definitely, original story and all that, creative freedom, but that has that, undoubtedly Aztec flavor to it. And that's what we wanted to do. And that's why we went that route. But, maybe next game, it's something completely different. It's about, I don't know, revolutionary times or something else entirely.
I think we just got a leak.
Making salsa or something. Oh yeah, I know.
Just got a leak.
Shouldn't be
revolutionary.
Talking too much.
I really have to thank you guys for doing a game about ancient gods that aren't Greek. Because as a Greek man, it's like I feel like I get it. It's popular. It's widely known, like 12 Greek gods, Hercules. Like, but I've seen it so many times.
Yes.
In the same year, like 2 to 3 games. I'm like, enough with my stuff.
Yeah, no.
And now I get to see other people's stuff, and I appreciate it because it's not mine, which is weird. Because most folks think I can see myself now in this about Mexican culture, but I'm like, no, I want to see other shit. That's because my shit has been in so much shit already.
Yeah, it's been done to death. Yeah,
it
really has. I want to talk. Well, first, why don't we tell everybody really what is Aztec? Because I think that getting everybody kind of on the same page here, what they're going to be thinking about, you know, if it's a game that they want to go and give a try to. So why don't you explain to our listeners, give the elevator pitch. What is Aztec Forgotten Gods?
From the marketing guy, no less.
From the marketing
Yeah,
guy.
I know,
Don't
right?
screw
Better be
this
good.
up.
This better be good.
This is pressure.
Don't
You're going to earn your dollar now.
What is it? Don't cite the dark texts. I was there when they were written, or something like that. Yeah, I wrote them. Yeah, I mean, Aztec is basically it's built on top of two main pillars, right? The first one makes up the universe. The second one makes it a game. The first one was, you know, basically we wanted to answer you know, this particularly interesting question, which is what would have happened if, for whatever reason, you know, the one event that we know it's historically the most, you know, important in the history of the continent, the conquest, right? The story of conquest and the British coming and the Spanish coming and the Portuguese coming and conquering Mesoamerican civilizations. What if that just didn't happen for whatever reason? And we would have in turn allowed the Mesoamerican civilizations and every other American civilization to grow and evolve and flourish, you know, past their time, past our own time, and way into the future. And how would that look like? And so we basically come up to this weird mix of Blade Runner meets Atlantis kind of vibe that we thought was extremely interesting. And we at least us, we hadn't seen that before anywhere. Almost like this Mesoamerican Wakanda of sorts that just sparked the imagination. You know, it really took us to a very interesting place in terms of playgrounds. And so we want our player to be in that world, in a very unique, different, you know, pyramid-filled world. And then for the second pillar, which is what makes it a game, we thought, okay, what if the ancient deities, right, that these guys used to worship and that are still very much a part of our own culture in Mexico, and cultural pride and all this, what if those were, you know, actual entities, and they were they fed on what we used to call, or what we right now we call souls, but back then, you know, in the Aztec lore, they had a word for it. It's the materia ligera. It's the light matter, right? There's heart matter and light matter. Heart matter is what you can touch and what you can see and what you can smell. Light matter is everything else that you don't understand, right? And Chicli, we don't really mention it like that in the game, but Chicli, that's basically trying to put into context what the human sacrifices were, right? Human sacrifice was basically that, and everyone knows Mesoamerican civilizations because of the sacrificing and all of this chablam. But that happened because, you know, there was a light matter exchange between the, you know, ethereal and the mortal, and we wanted to explore that a little bit, right? So in the game, what happens is that, you know, the deities have been lost for years, for a long time, ergo the forgotten gods, and now they're coming back out. They rise again, and they rise hungry, and it's your job to try and stop them for firsts, but more importantly to try and understand why they're doing this, and you know, what's the motivation behind it. And so as Ashley, as our main protagonist in the game, your job is to stop them from destroying your city, but understanding, you know, what's behind this very mysterious past that you don't really know a lot of. So that's basically what the game is, and what we expect you to find out in Aztec.
I think one of the more striking things is that you kind of tickle this PlayStation 2 era of art design and gameplay that I think hasn't really been explored enough. Like, Andy, you and I have been experiencing some PlayStation 1 era games, especially in the horror scape. Like, a lot of games are going back to that minimalist style. This is very much, I feel like, a PS2. Like, you know, you pick a game off the wall because you like the cover and it says gods on it, so you put it in your PlayStation and you see what happens. It's like, honestly, that's what it feels like, and it instantly you know, reminds me of the wonder of, you know, not really knowing what you're getting into. Can you talk a little bit about the art design and the decision to, I mean, this is a game that ostensibly is a very pretty PS2, and I know I'm boiling that down. It's the art style that I'm talking about. There's a lot happening under the hood. You could see the whole city. It's beautiful. The particle effects are gorgeous. All of that stuff, just talking technically, is absolutely beautiful. But if you're telling somebody that's 35 years old, hey, play this game, they go, oh, this looks like a PS2 game. Yeah, it looks like what you used to play as a kid. Why go that route? What is the allure and appeal of that style for the team?
Well, you hit on the nail. I mean, we yeah, as you mentioned, right? The inspiration behind people will look at our games and think, yeah, they have some sort of Native American or cultural or mythological inspiration going on, and that can also be said for our art style. Mulaka, you see Mulaka, and you basically see a 60-bit era kind of game, right? It's a very blocky, very edgy kind of Banjo Kazooie in ways
Yeah.
type of game.
Mhm.
Right.
With Aztec, what we did was basically move that towards the next generation, and now we have. That's exactly right. A GameCube / PlayStation 2
I love it.
kind of like visual style going that basically serves just that. So serves nostalgia because at the end of the day, that's what we grew up playing, right? And
Right.
that's where most of our inspirations end up coming from. We wanted to evoke that, you know, feeling of just like you said, right? Playing whatever your favorite PS2 titles, or I don't really want to name names because again, I don't want to set that
Way too
high of a
many.
bar, right? Yeah, and there's way too many of them. But you can definitely see a little bit of that era put in the game with the upgraded like particle effects and of course freedom to do crazy cinematics and all that that we wanted to have, but we wanted you to feel at home. I guess that's the best way to put it. We
Yeah.
wanted you to feel like you used to feel back in summer day Sunday when you were a little bit younger. That's the whole idea, and I think that the team, at least our art department, has been fantastic at emulating that style in that sense. That you can definitely see it in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, we were drawn like immediately to the art. I think Steven sent me an email saying we got to get these guys on the show because the game just looked phenomenal. Because again, it invokes that very specific period in time and all those feelings associated with it. And it just looks cool. It's not
Yeah.
about like the flashiest graphics or the biggest of budgets. It's a fun game. It looks like a really fun game to play.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that's it, right? That's that you don't have to go for the flashy looks all the time. Like there's a time and place for it, definitely, uh, but there's other things that you can pursue, and we think that we went for that one, and it's a little bit of a gamble because again, it's appealing to our generation
Right.
of gamers and games, but you know, newer generations, it's like what the hell is this? Like this looks all this shit, right? And we understand it, and that's why, you know, there's a certain implication also of anime inspired kind of thing where that's a little bit more timeless, and so that helps, you know, with that a little bit. But definitely our audience, it's more tailored to that late 20s to the early 30s kind of age group, definitely.
What? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
Oh no, I was gonna say, how do you balance that between getting the nostalgic look of it, but not having the game bogged down by like old mechanics and things that, you know, we've learned a lot from since the PS2 era, you know, from a gameplay perspective? How do you manage that? Do you just say, well, it's gonna look and feel like a game that's 30 years old, or or do you just have it okay?
Well, 20,
Aesthetically.
20 years old. Let's
Sure.
not get crazy.
Yeah, like get carried away.
You know, I don't know
Yeah,
anymore. I feel like every day it's like so and so game turned 30. I'm like, shit, how old am I?
yeah, I know, like so in the 70s, you mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh no, like shit, it's the 90s now. Yeah, it's a very difficult balancing act for sure. There is undoubtedly, yes, there's inspiration that comes from our, you know, nostalgic years, but again, you know, one of your jobs as a game developer, and that's something that's not talked about nearly enough, is you're constantly learning, right? That learning never stops, and it's something that if you're not doing, you should be doing it as a game developer. You have to keep that knowledge base as updated as possible, and you have to keep understanding the new trends and the new tools and the new methodologies and the new things that are important to the audience right now, right? And you know, there's a plethora of things that you can really think of that point to the modernity or modern times in games, and that's something that you have to take into account. That said, there's a lot that you can do by looking to the past exploring and using things that might seem old, but that are really ripe for, let's say, reutilization in a new way. And I think, oddly enough, one of our biggest inspirations, they did it really well. Shadow of the Colossus, right? You can see the PS2 version of Shadow of the Colossus, which is definitely one of the things that we use as a reference. But then you see the remaster that came out a couple of years ago, and you understand, like, okay, so there's still a lot of old things, but even though it still feels old, you might be surprised to how many things are actually updated, and they work on a in today's environment that might have not been there in the original game. And you go back and play the original one, it's like, oh shit, that's true, it's not the same. That's what we think at least we try to do with this one. Things that were just not possible back then. You allude to the city earlier on, having this explorable city that's not by any means, like, it's not a Skyrim for certain stuff.
Yeah, it's got little nooks and crannies and challenges that you can do. It reminds me more of like a Spider-Man, a smaller Spider-Man 2.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Just it's got its little corners, but like the story that you're trying to tell is really like the star of the show. One of the things that I think sort of was the toughest for me to kind of break through was bringing way too modern sensibilities and habits that I have created over the last like 10 years of gaming, and going in and being like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? And then all of a sudden you're being like, oh, okay, I need to go through these things. I'm trying to be as vague as possible. I need to go through these little boosty things, and I just got to go around. And it's like figuring out the boss pattern is one thing, but you're also trying to figure out the way the world plays into the boss fight and into the fights, and how the controller in a sense and the camera, the old school nature of those controls and camera work with the world. It's not like you just pigeonholed this camera because it was the limited of the technology. It's because it works well with the button layout and with how the bosses are moving or how you're moving around the bosses. Everything kind of just fits like a puzzle piece. And if you go into this game and you're thinking that you're going to go in and, I mean, there's a lot of flight. If you look at any B-roll of this game, there's a lot of flying around. You're rocketing all over the place. If you go into this thinking you're going to be Iron Man, I got news for you. It's not Iron Man. You're not going to be flying around, locking on, shooting missiles, diving, doing all this stuff. No, you're going to be like, okay, how could I make my limited use of flight and punching? How am I going to make this work in this bombastic situation? And when it clicks, which it finally did, I was cursing your game. I'm not going to lie. I was cursing it. But as soon as it clicked, I was like, oh, okay, Andy, I got it now. And he's like, oh, like yeah, you're good now. And I'm like, yes, I'm good now. Like it did. It took me a while. But I think I just wasn't in the right mindset. And that's one of those things that I feel like Aztech is going to have kind of going against them, is people that are going to go into this are probably going to expect something a little bit more, maybe a little bit more heavily leaning into the modern sensibilities rather than the nostalgic old school sensibilities, which I think, again, once you understand what it's physically trying to get you to do, with your dumb thumbs and your dumb brain, like once you realize that, it's a blast. Like as soon as I figured out
problem.
No, Andy. Well, it actually, I'll tell you this, Andy, you who plays old school games on the routine,
just gonna say,
this will feel completely secondhand.
I think my thumbs are more tuned to this sort of game than
the
yours
way
are.
Yeah, like I've been playing too many modern games. I've been playing a lot of modern AAA games, and I went back to this, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and it took a while for me to like train my brain to like be like, oh wait, okay, now I understand. This is an arena. I gotta kind of move around, use the buildings, use your verticality, and like kind of get in there. And I feel like this would instantly click with you, Andy. Instantly.
I agree.
Yeah, it's another one of those things that's a balancing act. It's you'll realize that the more liberty you give the player, right, the more degrees of freedom that you have in terms of, I can go up or down or sideways, or I can grab from things, or I can do this X amount of things, the harder it becomes to get a grasp of them and to understand them and to use them accurately or effectively. And so we had that choice, right? We either wanted a game to feel like more of an Iron Man, where we basically auto aim you to every weak spot and have you just press a button. That would be about it, or give the player the freedom of learning the tough controls. We know our tough controllers, but getting that higher sense of reward, right? When they finally got it and they finally made it click. And we ended up going that route ultimately, right? Because we thought that was a little bit more rewarding. And then adding the bombastic soundtrack on top of that and all of these things.
Metal. It's
Yes.
slasher core metal.
Yeah.
So good.
It's like
a lot of people were not expecting it, but we fell in love with the idea from the get-go.
I'm like, I turn on this game and I'm like, oh, here we go, we're going. It's like Beavis and Butthead, like, yeah, we're gonna fight this dude. Yeah, fire. But yeah, it really slaps you right in the face. I gotta be honest. It really. I wasn't sure what to expect, and I love one of the things I want to talk about, because it's one of the things I love the most. You got an awesome skill tree like again, this isn't just your fly around, punch things, beat the bad guys. Like, you have points that you're unlocking, experience points, whatever they're called. I don't know what the game actually calls them. But you spend them to unlock different abilities and points, more HP, more ostensibly magic for your gauntlet, and all these fun little tricks that you could do, which I love. That's the RPG element that I love. But you also have these little spots in the city that you can unlock costumes and different hairstyles, and like you could really customize how you're gonna play. Like, I unlocked a couple of things, and I look so badass right now, like just so freaking badass. And I think that's really cool too. That adds just a little layer of customization, a little layer of personal flair for the player, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, we wanted it. Those are the little things that we wanted to put in there that made it feel like an actual city. And then we very purposely, we do not like in marketing. I mean, within the game, we don't advertise it. It's not like, hey, go to the shop and you get whatever from going. It's like, if you happen to explore the city and run into one of these places and you go in there, it's like, oh, okay, cool. I have like a hair salon, and I have a like a dresser place, and I have my upgrade shop. It's like a little bit more organic, we think. It's just one of the mechanics that you can find just by walking around, right? And that makes you get this feeling of accomplishment of, oh, cool, so it's a city that's alive, right? And it's not forcing me to do it, it's just there if I want to do it, kind of situation.
It gives you a little bit of ownership over the city too, because like you start to, because you want to explore those things and unlock certain things, you start to really float around the city and see how it's built, and you get comfortable with it. So when a giant forgotten god decides it's going to take a diarrhea dookie all over like town square, you're like, oh, well, that sucks, I don't want that to happen. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of agency there as well. It helps kind of feed into that narrative for sure.
Yep.
I'm kind of glad that customizing your character isn't the main marketing talking point, because it sounds like
customize your hair.
That's like Bubsy level marketing. Like on the back of the box was like, collect 1-ups. It's like, wow, what an idea!
You can jump in this game. Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. It's in there. It's important. We wanted it to be there, but it's not like, we know it's not gonna. Right. It's not worth using our limited time in the spotlight to showcase. We much rather prefer showcase other things. Yeah, for sure.
So Steven's been a little vague. I want you to be not vague and kind of go into, what does the core gameplay loop look like for someone like me who hasn't played it? I feel more jealous by the second as Steven goes on about it. I'm like,
okay, so how
should have been me?
How can I put it without spoiling too much? Because I know that what basically triggers the actual main game loop, it's a spot that you have not reached that point just yet, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, this thing happens at some point in the story where you're now, basically what you're now prompted to do is you need to extract, like, your main weapon in the game, Lightkeeper, which is the gauntlet you can see Ashley wearing, is some sort of ancient artifact, right? It's an artifact that was created by one of the gods way back when, and what it can do besides make you fly and punch and all this, it absorbs energy. It's basically what it does. It absorbs energy.
It absorbs the light, as it were.
Right. Exactly. And so
That's
what
what
you
I
have,
do around my friends.
yeah, yeah, that's how they call me. Yeah, no, it's you have to use it to basically take the light out of the bosses, out of the gods, and then you have to go and put it somewhere to do something that's important. Is going to be your motivation for the rest of the game. In order to how can I put it? Well, I'm gonna have to spoil it because there's no other way. Like something's gonna happen to your mother, which is this very important character that you have throughout the game. You're introduced to these two characters, which is the intelligent mother researcher that's trying to find a solution to the world problems, and Ashley, her daughter, which is the main character, who you're gonna be controlling throughout the game. And so something happens to Nancy and to your mother, and so in order to get her out of her pickle, you need to get as much energy as you can and try to discharge it at a specific place, at a specific ruin or dig site. And so your motivation throughout the game is, oh man, I gotta get help for mom here. I need to fight these things, get their energy, come back to discharge the energy. A new one comes out, I gotta go and fight that one, and so on.
So do they just pop up kind of like how the first one does, or it's just like, oh, here it is, I gotta go fight it, or is it like, are you accomplishing something to get it to trigger the spawn of the big bad? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean,
because
technically it's definitely a sequential sequence of you do things that end up making the new guy pop up. Narratively speaking, they do pop up kind of randomly. It's like you're doing your stuff and you're figuring out a whole lot of things, secrets from the city, and there's this bad guy that comes up at some point and he does his thing too, and then a new guy pops out, a new deity pops up, and you have to go fight it. But yeah, no, definitely. We wanted to have a very controlled story. And you said that's like the main entree for the entire game. Right. So in order to have that control, we need to make it sequential. So you do this and you do this and you do this, and then new guy pops up and so forth.
Yeah. It's basically like the story is happening and then the bullet point, or like, the end of the chapter ends in a big bombastic fight. And then you kind of start the next little story, almost like a novella or something like that, like where you kind of just go through, see how that kind of. I mean, that's the beginning of the game opens up like that, and that was another thing that I was having a hard time getting through. Is like there's so much talking and figuring out what's going on and all of that stuff. Like you start off where you're fighting stuff, so you're like, oh, okay, you're gonna fight stuff, I get it. And then it just abruptly stops doing that for like 45 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
And you're like, okay. But then once the big bad comes, now you realize that, okay, this is the carrot at the end of the stick. I'm understanding what's happening in this world. I'm getting used to who these characters are. I'm, ostensibly investing in these characters, and then I have the obstacle in front of me, which is this creature that I now have, or this god that I now have to figure out how to take down. Because it's not, I wouldn't say it's as complicated as a Colossus where, you have to figure out how you're going to climb it or, where the weak points are. It kind of tells you, okay, that's clearly a weak point, but it's more about how to get to the weak point using the world around it. That was kind of the interesting aspect of it. So I think that, for players that want to know what it is, it's basically an exploratory, narrative-driven boss rush game.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. Definitely.
And it's
I hate you so much.
In a 3D environment, it's 3D controls, some flight mechanics, climbing mechanics. It's very, very old school Spider-Man sort of like bouncing from building, area to area. You get these little boosts that kind of throw you around and you just kind of orient yourself, punch the thing, and avoid the attacks. Like that's really that was the first fight. So, and I assume the other ones are going to build on that, become more and more difficult, which is great.
To be absolutely fair, you said it perfectly. And from this point onward, from when you are where I think you are right now in the story, the stakes are much shorter. Because I do know, like that was the main thing with how we set up the story. It takes a while before you get to the actual fighting for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that point on, it was like, okay, we now have you. You now understand what's at stake. Let's keep it going. And now it starts getting into that game loop that it's a little bit more
Yeah.
hooky in a way. But as you said, it's an investment. We wanted to have characters that you care about, and in order to have that, you have to give them some screen time. And there was no other way to, because of how the game is built, to have any other type of encounter or like action-filled encounter up until that point. But it gets better from there, which is something that I really enjoy about it. It's taking you in this ramp, right? It's a roller coaster, and you're just like going upwards before the first fall, which takes a little while, but once you're there, it's cool.
I think one of the things that makes it initially difficult to kind of get through that is that you're doing it in that classic old school way. Like, it's not fully voiced over. It's not like these cut screen cinematics. The player is physically moving it along by pressing buttons. And I think that's what, can turn somebody off. But like I said, once you get to the actual big baddie, now that you've reached the carrot, now you understand what's going on in this universe. So I think, like, when you guys are ready to make the jump to PS3, and you get those you get those VO cutscenes, I mean, this would be a breeze. Maybe we'll do a remaster or like whatever.
Yeah, no, I love that.
I'm looking forward to the Blue Point remake in 6 years on the PS7, whatever the hell.
Don't even get me started with voice acting, because that was a production long debate that we had with the team, and that's one of the things you have to sometimes sacrifice when you're a smaller team, when you have a limited budget. It was definitely in the cards. It was something that we would have loved absolutely to have, and that we know it would have fit well with how the game ended up being. But we had a compromise, and at the end, the grunt based system that we have, which is basically just you kind of get the emotion that people are having by hearing what they grunt about, works well in that retro sense, right? It's very much reminiscent of those old age games, maybe even further back than PlayStation 2, right? The typical Banjo-Kazooie kind of like dialogue thing. It's very reminiscent of that in a weird way. So yeah,
highly effective too, though. That kind of
I know, totally is. So yeah, no, definitely, and it's fun to hear you, seeing it from your perspective. You've mentioned Spider-Man 2 a couple times, and Yoshitomi Moriwaki, who is one of the developers of Spider-Man 2, is one of our mentors, and it's one of the main key figures, that has helped us with getting the movement just right and getting the mechanics just right. So huge shout out to Tomo, by the way. So yeah, that's definitely a lot of that you can kind of get from the game once you play it.
That's like the highest of praises, dude. To mention like, oh, your game is like Shadow of the Colossus and Spider-Man 2 on PS2. Like some of the best games ever.
Ever, yes.
In that era that ever came out.
Yeah, no, that's just flattering.
And you did not try, and you could tell, like, you didn't try to bite off more than you can chew here. Like, you went in, you found the aspects of those things that you really wanted to nail home, and I'm telling you, it was like a switch had to go off. I know, Andy, recently you had this switch go off with Sifu, which is a very old school sensibilities, beat 'em up game where you're like, oh yeah, I wanted to throw my controller out the window until all of a sudden the switch goes off in your head, and now all of a sudden you get it.
Because it's the design that it forces you to learn while playing the game.
Right.
It's like, here's like a 5-page, press X to skip to page 2, 3, 4 of tutorial prompt.
Right.
And you're like, what button does what again? What's my this? What's my that? No, it's like, no, bitch, you got to play the game. That's how you're going to learn.
Yeah. And
all of the things.
It's very similar here in Aztech, because like, you'll be like, okay, this button is going to make you fly or blast forward or whatever. And you're like, okay, this button makes you jump. Okay. Oh, snap. If I do both of them, I could do this. Oh, snap. If I run into an obstacle, she's going to like Spider-Man run up the wall, or like whatever with the gauntlet behind like you start to figure out how these things are going to play together, but it doesn't tell you, hey, yeah, do this and you'll be able to do a vault off of the building and dive. You just kind of just figure the shit out, and once you start to really understand how the movement works, and that's one thing that like our listeners and viewers, if you got to give it a chance. Like, go in there and mess around with it. I almost wish that there was a situation where you could just kind of early on just kind of explore and just run around and fight. Like, well, I guess there is technically, because you could go into those combat zones that are kind of hidden on the rooftop. So like you can do that, but some of those challenges are difficult when you don't know what you're doing yet. So like you're like, okay, wait, okay, this sucks. Like, am I bad at this game, or is everything broken? But no, it's I do encourage like people, like, don't give up on it. Like give it that at least to the first boss fight, because once that shit clicks, man, it's very satisfying. Like, I want to play right now. Like, I have it over here paused.
Yeah, me too, asshole.
I have it paused. I didn't go. Listen, I went through the PR loops, and I did it the right way, Andy. Okay, I did it the right way. I'm just
stalking people on Twitter, trying to find an email address.
We can get it. I think we might know someone.
I think.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think we might know someone.
Someone that knew how to.
This is the chance. It's like, I'm gonna do a purchase. Gotta support.
Oh, that I understand. That I appreciate.
Yeah.
No. I'm still gonna send you a key as
that's
soon
the
as
thing,
we finish
Andy.
The call.
Great.
It's on all these different platforms, Andy. It's on so many platforms. You can buy it anywhere you want.
If I get a key, I'd rather do a giveaway. Let someone else experience it, and I'll buy it myself.
Considered it done.
Beautimous. You'll love to see it. Andy, I think it's time to get into some rapid fire. What do you think?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm getting emails about Elden Ring, and I'm like, stop it.
Calm yourself. Okay?
There's other thing to play now.
Yeah, I know.
I gotta beat all these games by March 10th, apparently. So whatever.
That then Gran Theft Auto, it's Gran Turismo. So yeah.
Don't worry. Gran Turismo, we're passing on that one. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll buy it at some point, maybe, but
maybe.
Not a huge focus.
Guillermo, rapid fire is where we really get to know you. It's where we're gonna dig past all the surface level PR bullshit that you've been feeding us for the last 43 minutes. And we're going to get really into the nitty gritty. Okay. You can't train for rapid fire. Okay. You can't train for it. So we're going to start off real simple. We're going to bring it back around. This is called a, what do you call it there? A
callback,
a touchstone, if you will, to Andy's first statement about breakfast cereal.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guillermo, is cereal a soup?
It's a broth.
It's a broth.
It's a broth.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
I'm a little nervous about my question, Steven.
Okay.
Because I think it might inadvertently answer the last question of the show, but I'm gonna go for it.
Interesting. Okay. This is interesting.
Guillermo, virgin sacrifice. Who's going up, me or Steven?
Oh my goodness.
If you had to be like, just by sheer looks alone, like that guy's not getting laid. Like who is being offered up?
Yeah.
I don't think either of you. I think you're both getting thrown down the staircase of the Great Pyramid.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't mind.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's all about the beard. It's it's all about the beard.
Guillermo,
that saves everything.
How cold does it have to be for you to wear a jacket?
You'd be surprised. I generally start wearing jackets by the time it hits about 5 degrees Celsius, which let me get my internet here.
40?
I have no idea.
40. Fair.
It's exactly 41. Yeah, it's 40 Fahrenheit. Okay. Yeah, about that point. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. That some heathens out there at like 65, they're putting a coat on, and I'm like, come on, stop this.
I spent half a year in Montreal doing some stuff back at school, so yeah, I got used by force to be cold resistant. Otherwise, it would have just died probably.
Cold resistant. That's how.
Yeah,
I love it. Andy,
what is something you have done that should have killed you?
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Jesus Christ. Okay, let me try and pick one.
I love it. There's like multiple in his head.
would be a good answer to this? Okay, so once I took a risk on a business pitch with someone that I know. It's at this point I consider him a friend, and it was, we're good. But back then I didn't really knew a lot about him. And this pitch was, he wanted to show me how, he was building some like cool new buildings and offices and office spaces and whatnot in a shady part of town. And
oh no.
yeah, I know. And when we got there, and when I got there, I was there alone. He was with his family, and so it was like 5 or 6 dudes. And we were like, yeah, let's go see the buildings. And these were unfinished buildings, like still blocks everywhere and no paints, like no lights, no nothing. In order to get in, we had to like pull away this like sheet metal thing that was blocking the door.
Yep.
Right.
There could not have been more "do not enter" signs.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So went in, everything was pitch dark, using the camera cell phone light to light the place. And at that point, I was sure I was going to get kidnapped. I was absolutely certain. I thought, okay, where am I running? How am I going to face this like 6 dudes? Am I faster than them? Like I was already working out my exit strat. At the end, he just really showed me the building, and it was a really cool project they had going. Really talked with the rest of his family. They were lovely, and they were really good. But at that point, I remember fearing for my life greatly. Yeah, that was the one time that I was really scared for it. That's the one I go to when I think about dead scares. Yeah.
If you could experience one video game for the first time again, all over again, which game would that be?
Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. What which of the forgotten Aztec gods do you think best represents your personality?
Probably. All right, I was gonna go for one, but it's a spoiler, so I'll go for another one. Probably Tlaloc. Is the rain and lightning and agriculture deity. Because he likes water, and I used to swim for the longest time. I was a swimmer for a long time. I was in the swimming team, like a state level, whatever that's called, swimming team for a long time. So yeah, I love water. I love swimming. So there you go.
I can't swim, just so you know.
Oh, it's an important.
You can't swim.
Things that's it. No.
Oh, but can you float? That's
maybe.
Okay. We should
Interesting.
I think the fear of not being able to swim will drag me down. Like,
Gotcha.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You not being able to swim is a completely new thing for me. But you know what, Guillermo? Let's learn about stuff that you can't do that everyone else can do. What's something that normal, like just people can normally do that you just can't do?
Oh man. Probably. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of people can, and I'm dumb that way. I can play guitar. I'd love to be able to play guitar.
Instruments are hard, man. That's a skill.
Yeah, but they ended up being harder than I thought, and I've been to lots of like classes and stuff.
Oh, I'm
just never able to. Yeah, and I failed.
You tried.
I think I'm in the same boat as he is. I feel like if I sat down with a guy or a gal and like, teach me guitar, they would take their own life out of frustration trying to teach me how to play.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's like, my case too. Like, how did I do an F? God damn it.
We mentioned tequila earlier.
Yeah.
So let's say Aztech comes out, critical acclaim, commercial success, and you've had too many tequila shots, Guillermo.
No such thing.
What word best describes you when you're drunk?
Truthfulness. Untainted, unfiltered.
That is a truth serum. That is not a good one.
Oh,
that's a dangerous one.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. But hey, I don't have anything to hide. I hope people don't tell me things they don't want.
You think that, but I don't know.
What is the dumbest way you've injured yourself?
I was once walking. We were on a holiday, and this we were walking on the street, and this big resorts have like this beautiful, well kept gardens. And I decided, I was a little dumb kid, I decided to run along those beautifully kept gardens instead of the sidewalk. And for whatever reason, someone left a sewer gate open that for whatever reason was not visible because the grass was just the right height for it not to be visible. And so, I was running up the hill and then suddenly I disappeared and I fell into like the drainage, like the sewer tube that, there's a little
You were
bit
the
of
kid in a well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the way I saved that's almost losing my life, going back to that the way I saved myself is that I put both elbows out and both knees out and stopped myself via friction so I didn't go all the way down. And
oh my God.
I guess that's
so how far down did you go?
I don't know, it could have been maybe 5 or 6 feet, probably something like that, and then tried and climb my way back up and saved my dad back then, reached out and grabbed me and pulled me out.
Oh, good lordy.
Wow.
Yes.
Good lordy.
Yes. That's like a very epic, high action injury. That's
your superhero origin story.
and just drop for whatever reason because I'm dumb. But yeah, we don't count those.
Who has the most punchable face?
There's out of the three of us, or just
no? You mean you can,
or out of how many? What's my?
I want to say like in general, like
okay.
Among all of the people, like
in the world,
right? Celebrities, whatever the hell it may be, or
punchable.
If someone clock me in the face, you can go right for it. But I'm just
no, not at all. I always go with Michael Cera.
He does. He absolutely does.
I see that.
Absolutely,
I'm
right.
sure he's a lovely guy, and
I'm sure he knows
against him.
Yeah,
but it's just like, oh man, I see him, and I just can't help myself. Yeah, totally.
Wow. Yeah, that's accurate. Speaking of superhero origin stories, which of course you falling in a well is yours. Would you rather have the power of flight or invisibility?
Flight all the way.
Modifier.
If I could teleport myself, that's the one. But
modifier. Would you rather keep that flight or trade it in for breathing underwater?
No, fly all the way. That's flying all the way. Yeah. I don't want to meet
Well, you're
fish.
a swimmer. You're a swimmer.
But I already can swim. I don't need to, go into water. There's nothing down there.
I'm just saying.
We don't know what's down there. We don't know what's down
Atlantis could be down there is all I'm saying.
Well, that's the one. But I mean, I would also need to have pressure resistance because I mean, I can keep my breath for a while, but it's not going to allow me to go to the very depths of the sea, right?
Yeah, I don't like science. Science is weird.
I'd much rather fly. It's so much cooler. People can see you fly, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, cool! Look, the flying guy, the flying sewer man." It's. Do
you think flying is flying like running? Do you get out of breath from flying? Because I wouldn't handle that well.
I don't think so. It feels passive to me.
Does it exert energy? Is it like breathing? It can't be that.
It's a really good question. Can you get tired from flying?
Like if I fly for it's like I'm going for a sprint or like a power walk. What is that like?
No, I wish
you're doing something.
I think you do. I think I've seen Superman clench his butt when he's flying. So there's at least some level of effort going on.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Butt clenching.
Are there any obese heroes that fly? Is my follow-up question, because that could be a good way to gauge.
Could
you imagine being out of breath while you're flying?
Thor, kind of, but he doesn't really fly though.
A while. Yeah,
he just
throws his
the hammer kind of takes him.
Right.
I can't think of any fat flying superheroes.
Wow.
Well, on the topic of superheroes, what would your power be? But it has to be a lame one.
Well,
you're like a
lame superpower.
You're like a lame hero with like a shitty ability.
I can control time, but I can only do it 1 second at a time.
That's
that
actually
would be
pretty. That's
yeah.
pretty. That's still useful. I
My
feel.
I'm sure you'll find some use for that
Yeah.
at some point.
Right. Like what's that Nick Cage movie about seeing the future? Maybe I can control like
Oh shit! Yeah, that
like,
one.
like stack each second on top of each other and just be
Right,
right.
You'd
Yeah,
probably you'd probably be like a really good fighter. You know, just be like,
yeah. I mean,
boom,
there's a
boom,
lot you
just
can do in 1
avoiding
second.
everything and just like punch a
Right.
dude and yeah, that's a lot. You could get that done. Andy, I'm gonna hit us up with the final question.
Oh
Andy.
boy, here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. Now we know which one of us you're gonna sacrifice to the virgin gods, but now we're gonna ask you the most important question that you could possibly be asked. There is no context. There is no pretext.
Ooh.
There's no text at all. It's
My
just
answer is 42.
okay. That's a good answer.
Is that the answer?
That's
to
a
the
good answer.
question?
The question is very simple, and the answer is even simpler.
Okay.
Literally, a baby could answer it.
Ooh.
Guillermo, Andy, or Steven?
Ooh. Andy or Steven?
Usually, the backgrounds is what gets us.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Actually,
I did
You
put the
gotta,
Trump
you
card
gotta
here.
like, we gotta blur this.
I'm
put the
seeing
Trump
out.
Bob
Oh, you
Ross
got,
down
what is that, Bob
there.
Ross?
Yeah, I put
Seeing,
the Trump
and
card
I'm
out.
seeing a Mega Man on Andreas.
There's several Mega Mans on my shelf.
I got
Yeah.
several Marios. Okay,
You know,
and
we could always have the guests
Joker,
rate our
Batman.
shelves as
I have
a
Dr.
separate
Fraser
question.
Crane. Andy, I have Dr. Fraser Crane.
I would pick you because of that either. Also, so
You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go the simple route, and I'm gonna go with Andreas because I
Okay.
have my room has the exact same wooden-looking doors.
oh, that little
in my closet.
slat thing going on back there.
Yeah. I have the same one. So, yeah, I feel a sense
God.
of familiarity. Or
Of all things to get you, Steven, my closet.
I've lost to closet doors now. That's
Devoid
it.
of personality.
That's a first.
I have
That's
lost
a
to
first.
closet
It goes
doors.
downhill
He's like,
from
you
here.
know what? You know what? I
Wow.
like Andy has eyebrows that I can relate to, so I'm gonna think those
I understand.
are more in line with mine.
I understand. Ladies and gentlemen, what I don't understand is how this show could be over so quickly.
Oh my god, it's
That
been
is-
an hour.
That
already?
is, yes, indeed. That is going to bring us to
Can't
the end of
believe
the
it.
show. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at duel_screens. I'm at Batchild27. Andy is at PantsGuy. Guillermo, where could everybody find you?
You can find me over at Twitter at 6U1LL3. That's my name with letters and numbers. I know it's weird. I don't care. I still like it. And if not there, you can find us via Lienzo at hola at lienzo.mx or in our website. And shoot us an email if you have any questions about the game. We would be delighted to respond.
Awesome. And when's the game coming out again and for which platforms? Tell everybody the spiel. Give the PR spiel.
Coming out for absolutely everything. It's coming out on Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, on Xbox One, on PlayStation 4, on PlayStation 5, on Nintendo Switch, on PC via Steam, the Epic Game Store, and even though it's not still in the images out there, but also on GOG. And it's going to be coming out on March 10th, so 15 days from when we are recording. I don't know when you're going to be seeing this, but for probably very soon from when you're seeing it, so keep an eye on it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Andy knows all.
Yes.
He's the keeper of the schedule.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tell your friends about the show. We need to grow, so help us grow. Do it. Spread the word. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. And as always, please be excellent to each other.